Howdy gamers. Let's talk about the runes for Qiyana mid lane. Um, with the changes to her in the recent patch, she doesn't really work in the jungle anymore, so really her only viable role is going to be the mid lane, as a lot of what she excels at is roaming. And if she was to be played in the top lane, she would just be beaten by almost every single melee champion, and then her roams would be very one-dimensional, in which she could only move into the enemy jungle or into the mid lane. Versus whenever you play her in the mid lane, you have better control over your lane, you're able to push it out a lot sooner, and you get a lot more levels, and then therefore get more base damage on her, and you're able to roam to every part of the map, as you have access to every part. You can go to bot lane, you can go to top lane, you can go to one side of the jungle, you can go to the other side, so you get way more options whenever you're playing her in the mid lane. For Qiyana's runes, I don't think that there's really any viable keystone other than Electrocute. With something like Dark Harvest, like maybe you could make an argument for it, where with Dark Harvest, whenever you damage an enemy champion below 50% health, you deal extra damage, and then you also harvest their soul. So it's kind of like a scaling option. But with Qiyana, in almost every single case, you're overkilling champions, and with Electrocute, it helps you do that, and it also helps you kill a single target, as that's a lot of what Qiyana's looking to do in the early game is roam to a side lane and then kill that single target, and then that's her functionality. And then into the mid and late game, she's effectively looking to do the same thing. Yes, she can have like 5-man ults, but with that, they're going to deal damage to anyone or to everyone anyways. So you really trade off a huge amount of her early power in Electrocute if you were to go for something like Dark Harvest. And with that early power, you gain more item advantage if you have successful ganks or just solo kills. And then with that, the item advantage is going to translate to more damage than Dark Harvest would be dealing in like almost every single case. So with the Keystone, again, it's Electrocute. With Electrocute, hitting an enemy champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities deals bonus adaptive damage based on your level, and then based on your bonus attack damage. And then Electrocute's only on a 25 to 20 second cooldown, so effectively always 25 seconds. And with that, it can be used as a laning tool, where you could take a trade onto the enemy, proc Electrocute, and then that extra damage added puts them at a lower amount of HP, therefore giving you a more significant lane advantage than not. Because if you had something like Dark Harvest, that trade would just be less damage and a pretty considerable amount of damage less. Electrocute's also going to help you whenever you're all-inning, as it just adds to your overall burst. So Electrocute's pretty standard with most assassins, and Qiyana's really no exception, as she needs it for the extra damage early and to kill a single target. And then through doing so, you're better off getting gold advantages to get more items to deal more damage to everyone on the enemy team versus running a rune that would do so. So with Electrocute, it puts you in the domination tree, and then for the second runes, you have good options in Taste of Blood or Sudden Impact. Taste of Blood, you have the trade-off of Sudden Impact where you're missing out on damage. Sudden Impact's giving you lethality and magic pin whenever you're using your dash, flash, or leap. So anytime you would use your W, your E, or your flash on Qiyana, you're going to be proccing Sudden Impact. Even whenever you use your Q in the grass form, then you go invisible, and then, or you're camouflaged, and then you can still proc Sudden Impact in that ways. So with that, you have tons of ways to proc Sudden Impact, and the damage that Sudden Impact offers basically functions as like a minor keystone, as where Qiyana has so many ways to proc it, and where her damage is so immediate, she makes really, really good use out of it. And again, just adding more damage that you otherwise wouldn't have. With Taste of Blood, you gain access to this laning tool, which if you don't have a lane that you have to trade against, then you don't really get any value out of Taste of Blood. But against lanes like Akali, where like you have to think about like melee lanes with like these short range poke abilities, if you're able to offset a little bit of the damage they're dealing with Taste of Blood, you can just have better lane states because of it. It's more effective at higher MMRs, and it's more effective if you can play the laning phase well. But in most cases, I would just recommend Sudden Impact, as it's the simplest to use. It's going to be giving you access to more damage, and yeah, if there's very few lanes that really call for Taste of Blood to be ran on Qiyana, and when you have to run them, it's only at a higher MMR where it really matters anyways. And then when you do have to run them, I think it's fairly obvious to a higher MMR player, like in those matchups, mostly the short range matchups that have poke, like I said, like Akali. For the third rune, you're basically choosing how you gain the bonus attack damage from these 3 runes. Zombie Ward, you gain the bonus attack damage through clearing wards. With Zombie Ward, whenever you clear a ward, you also place a ward. So you basically turn the enemy's vision into your own. With Ghost Portal, you earn the bonus attack damage through placing wards, and then Ghost Portal will spawn effectively another ward whenever your ward expires. And with Eyeball Collection, you gain the bonus attack damage through getting kills and assists. I think the more consistent way for Qiyana to build it up is through Zombie Ward. You can start Sweeper level 1 on this champion if you want to. And then again, whenever the enemy mid laner places a ward, if you're paying attention, after you push out the wave, then you can just go and sweep that ward. And then that ward becomes your ward, and you've also gained attack damage because of it. Where Qiyana's constantly looking to move to the side lane too, it creates a mini objective, as if the enemy's playing well against you, they'll be warding the pixel bushes in the river so that your roams aren't as successful. And then with that, you can clear those wards, even if the wards are in their jungle. If you were to hop over a wall, then you can still clear the wards, and then you still get value out of moving out of your lane, regardless of if you're moving all the way to a side lane for a gank or not. So you create a really nice dynamic in that sense. Where your first item is probably going to be Umbral Glaive as well. It has really good synergy with that, as Umbral Glaive is going to reveal wards to you once completed, and then you basically become like better than any support champion has ever been. You just walk through the river, you clear every ward in the river, you walk through the enemy jungle, you clear every ward in the enemy jungle, and then all of those wards that are cleared now become wards for your team. It's really, really strong, and especially where Qiyana's so pick oriented, you create this weird vision dynamic in the mid lane, and potentially in the river and in the jungle. So it's a really, really fantastic rune. And to trade all of that off for Eyeball Collection is like, if you're smurfing, go for it, man. Run Eyeball Collection. But if you're not, Zombie Ward is just so much better. For the 4th rune, all of these are Bounty Hunter runes, meaning that they stack up based off unique takedowns. So killing the top laner would be one, getting a killer assist on the jungler, the mid laner, the AD, the support, etc. And through getting unique kills and assists, you stack up the bonuses offered by these runes. The only really good ones for Qiyana would be Ravenous Hunter, healing you for a percentage of damage dealt by your abilities, and then Relentless Hunter, which gives you out of combat movement speed. I think Ravenous Hunter is actually really solid for Qiyana. Even though you do spend your burst like almost immediately, a lot of the times Qiyana is like, you one-shot the enemy, but in your process of going in, you can be one-shot as well. So even in your fast animation when you're using the E onto the enemy, you are taking damage in a lot of cases. And with Ravenous Hunter, you're going to be healing off the damage that you potentially deal with your ult and then 2 Qs afterwards. So then it puts you at a higher amount of HP to play with as the fight's going on, potentially. Ravenous Hunter can also function as a laning tool, where you're going to be healing for a bit of the damage that you deal, so it adds to your sustain. It's not just damage to champions either, it's damage to everything with your abilities. So it just gives you more effective HP to play with, and to do that in the way that Ravenous Hunter does works out pretty well for Qiyana. The reason that Relentless Hunter isn't as high value on Qiyana, even though you want to be roaming a lot, you're better off getting the out of combat movement speed from Boots of Mobility. Because with Boots of Mobility, you can purchase them at such an early point in the game that you're basically always going to have more movement speed offered by it than you can have from Relentless Hunter, because with Relentless Hunter, you have to get the Bounty Hunter stacks to really have a meaningful amount of out of combat movement speed. And to get the Bounty Hunter stacks, you have to be getting kills and assists on multiple unique champions. So you really can't do that early enough in the game before you can just start roaming anyways with Boots of Mobility. And that's really it. And then once you have Boots of Mobility completed, if you have Relentless Hunter on top of that, it doesn't really add to anything. You're going to get in about the same positions that you would be able to anyways. So I think Ravenous Hunter is just vastly outweighing Relentless Hunter. There might be situations in which Relentless Hunter is better if you were side laning as Qiyana mid to late game, but in almost every single case, Ravenous Hunter is just easier to use and then probably more useful. So that's my thoughts on that. For these secondary runes, your only options are really Inspiration, Sorcery, and then Precision. With Precision, I don't really like it on Qiyana, as she doesn't really need anything in it. A standard assassin thing would be like Coup de Grace and then Triumph. Since Qiyana's going to be killing champions she gets on anyways, Coup de Grace doesn't really add to anything. With Coup de Grace, you deal 8% more damage to champions when they're below 40% health. you're going to be instantly killing some champions or not. Coup de Grace is really going to be adding damage to like your auto attacks, and that's not that impactful. Like 8% more damage to the auto attacks after you spent your full burst on someone. With Triumph, takedowns restore 12% of your missing health and grant you additional 20 gold. It's not bad, but I think it's outweighed by the things offered in the other trees that you can run secondary. For sorcery, you have, I think your best options are going to be like Nullifying Orb, Transcendence, and Water Walking. And depending on the matchups, I suppose you would switch them. With Null Orb, it's really good into magic damage matchups. So if you're not in a magic damage lane yourself, if it's not an interactive lane in which you would need laning tools, then you could get away with Nullifying Orb. With Nullifying Orb, whenever you take magic damage, that would reduce you to below 30% health. You gain a magic damage shield. So it's basically like Hex Shrinker, but in the rune. If you're against like a Karthus jungle, this is really good. If you're against like a Mordekaiser top, Rumble, etc., even a mage support, Nullifying Orb has a lot of utility, and people really don't expect it. And where Qiyana's looking to spend her HP for her position, it works out pretty well. With Transcendence, you gain access to the scaling option. With Transcendence, you get 10% cooldown reduction whenever you reach level 10, and then excess cooldown reduction is converted into AD. Qiyana's build naturally gets into 40% CDR, but then you're going to get 12 AD for every 10% cooldown reduction over the maximum. So you have a bit of scaling there, but then you can also get to 40% CDR faster, even if you're just on one or two items, depending on the game state. Blue buff can also be offering you AD in these sense too. So Transcendence is a really interesting option if you have a non-lane in which it's just full wave clear and then roaming. And then it goes hand in hand with Water Walking, as with Water Walking you gain 25 movement speed and a bit of AD whenever you're in the river. So it's going to help with your roams, and it's also going to help with your objectives, because with Qiyana you're really strong whenever you're fighting around objectives because of your ult. And with Water Walking, having the extra movement speed helps you get into position for fights. So it's incredibly strong in that sense. And once you get into the fight, you're going to have more cooldown reduction to get multiple rotations of your WQ off. So really strong combination. If you're looking to play a more neutral game, in which solo lanes don't have to die that early, and then you could just be fighting around objectives or be looking to play around them. These two also go hand in hand with Zombie Ward, as a lot of what you're doing is controlling around river, becoming a huge nuisance for the enemy. With Inspiration, it's probably going to be your easiest bet, as with Inspiration, you get access to huge laning tools and Biscuit Delivery plus Time Warp Tonic. With Biscuit Delivery, you get a biscuit every 2 minutes until 6. The biscuits restore 10% of your missing health and mana, and consuming or selling a biscuit permanently increases your mana by 50. The extra mana to play with is kind of whatever. In combination with Corrupting Potion, it makes it so that even in a losing lane, you're able to farm with your Q pretty consistently. Since the biscuits restore 10% of your missing health, the lower you are, the more impactful they are. And in combination with Time Warp Tonic, it makes it so that even in dangerous lanes, you have more HP to play with immediately, no matter the lane state. So with Time Warp Tonic, consuming a potion or biscuit grants you 50% of its health and mana regeneration immediately, and also gives you 5% movement speed while you're under the effects. So with that, it gives you ability to run lanes down. It helps you whenever you're approaching for ganks. It helps you in all-ins, as if you're diving the tower, you don't have to be taking multiple tower shots, but if you do, you have the health immediately from the Corrupting Potion and from the biscuit. So then you just have effectively like more HP immediately. So it helps you in like every single situation. In a laning phase, it would help you whenever you're taking brief trades onto the enemy, where you would E onto them and then auto QWQ, and then it's their turn to retaliate as you're just on cooldown and trying to walk away from them, as you're probably not killing them levels 4 or something. And then with these two, the movement speed helps you get away from them, and if you're winning, it helps you run them down. And then the immediate health means that their turn onto you isn't going to be as likely to be lethal, or even if they do damage you a lot, you still have enough HP to play closer to the wave without having to concede entirely. So the immediate HP gained from this and the bait potential and then the utility in it goes a lot, just is really generally useful. So I would say in most lanes, just run Biscuit Delivery and Time Warp Tonic in combination with Corrupting Potion first item. It's like your best bet. It makes Qiyana's laning like super easy, and it will help you win lanes as well. So it's not like it's not like run it because it's the easiest and you're bad. It's like run it because it's the easiest in the sense of like what the champion can accomplish or should accomplish. But your scaling options in Transcendence Water Walking are really good. And for precision, again, I just don't see any utility of it. Even if you were to playing into tanks or something, you ran something like Triumph and Tenacity, I just don't see it. Where Qiyana has so many ways to avoid damage anyways, I just don't see it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Qiyana mid lane runes. For the shards, it's always going to be Adaptive Force, and then the resistance based on your matchup. So if you're playing into AD, obviously you want to run the armor into matchups like Lucian, Irelia, etc. And then into AP matchups, champions like Ryze, Syndra, Orianna, Corki, whatever. Basically every mid laner, you want to run the magic resist. So yeah, again, that's my thoughts on Qiyana mid lane runes. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I answer literally all of them. If this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. And you can check out my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/SorryNelson. I talk about League of Legends there. And I also play it. Get this. I play League of Legends on Twitch. Check it out. It's a revolutionary stream. We're changing the world there by locking in like Vel'Koz support like every game. Check it out.